Welcome to the Mini Break, your daily podcast for the biggest storylines, results, and controversies from the tennis world. Today is Tuesday, January 23rd, day 10 of the 2024 Australian Open, now officially in the books. It was the opening day of quarterfinal play in both the men's and women's singles draws. It certainly did not disappoint. We got fascinating tennis littered throughout the day's matches, which of course I want to break down for all of you listeners here on today's show. It started with some serious funkiness. Was it the best tennis I have ever seen from both Coco Gauff or Marta Kostyuk in their quarterfinal bout? It certainly was not. Nevertheless, it speaks to the mental toughness, the tenacity 19-year-old Coco Gauff has already developed thus far in her career, that she was able to overcome what was, again, far from her best performance on the court, advance to a second consecutive major semifinal, where, by the way, a U.S. Open final rematch awaits, as she is going to take on Aryna Sabalenka. Sabalenka into her sixth, let me say that again, sixth consecutive major semifinals. She joins an elite company of players in doing so. It was another, dare I say, dominant performance for the world number 2. Straight set victory for her over Barbara Krejcikova. She's the class of the field. She showed it once again. I'll break down what I mean by that statement on today's show. And then, of course, a couple of good men's matches as well. That's the closest, even though I know Fritz pushed Djokovic to 5 sets in the Australian Open in the past. That's the best, though, I have ever seen Taylor Fritz play world number 1 Novak Djokovic. And, of course, ultimately Djokovic able to pull away, earn a 4-set victory. But those first 2 sets were fascinating. Maybe the highest level of tennis we have seen from Djokovic this tournament. Certainly maybe the highest level we've seen from Fritz in his career. A lot to discuss as it relates to that one, even if in the end it was a fairly straightforward result for Novak. And then, of course, I got to talk about a guy who I haven't spoken much of, at least as it relates to this major, and the reason is he hasn't given me much of a reason to do so. Jannik Sinner has cruised throughout this 2024 Australian Open, and he was certainly tested in his quarterfinal bout with world number 5 Andrei Rublev, but it's another straight set victory for the Sin man, the 22-year-old, advancing to the semifinals of this Australian Open, second major semifinal of his career, to set up a blockbuster. Let me say that again. Blockbuster showdown with Novak Djokovic, given the 3 matches they played to end the 2023 season. So, obviously, we got some headlines. We got some tennis to discuss here on today's show, and that's what I want to do for all of you tennis fans. Break down all 4 of our singles quarterfinals from day 10 of this event. Of course, the reason I'm able to do that day in, day out is because of the support we get from all of you listeners, and we appreciate that support. It allows us to expand our coverage into so many different other things happening in the tennis world, including, of course, things happening at the collegiate level. And a friendly reminder to all of you, the symbolic, the ceremonial start to the 2024 college tennis season. It's happening this weekend. 15 of the best men's and women's team in the country hosting 3 other schools, as all of them compete for a slot in the National Indoor Championships in February. We are going to be covering 20 of those regions across various Crack Racquets channels. Some of them going to be on our Crack Racquets YouTube channel, but perhaps most encouragingly, most excitingly, a lot of our coverage is going to be on ESPN Plus, right alongside of this Australian Open coverage. Again, we begin Friday on ESPN Plus. We'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We'll be on our Crack Racquets YouTube channel Friday, Saturday, Sunday as well. So if you haven't already, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Not only can you watch our college tennis coverage, you can watch these mini break podcasts now, as they're going to be posted up there at least 3-4 times a week. And again, we'd really appreciate that. Always helps us in negotiations with sponsors when we can show them an elevated subscriber count. Of course, again, on the Great Shot podcast feed, we're going to be previewing all aspects of that kickoff weekend. So if you're less familiar with the college tennis world, less familiar with the scene, make sure you go check that content out. Of course, all of our Australian Open content moving forward going to be housed here on the Mini Break podcast. And if you've missed out on anything, make sure you catch up out by checking out all of the episodes, which you can find by scrolling down on your Mini Break podcast feed, wherever it is you listen to this show. Of course, a shout out and thank you as well to the support we get from our friends at Tennis Point, tennis-point.com. The promo code is CR15 for all of the latest and greatest products at the best prices in the tennis world. Tennis-point.com. The promo code is CR15. All right, let's talk these day 10 singles matches. We got 4 good ones on our hand. Let's get funky to start. The Gauff-Kostyuk match was as competitive as I anticipated going in. It did not look at all what I anticipated it would, and I think a statistic that screams why it perhaps did not look that way is because you look at the unforced error count for each of these players. Marta Kostyuk, 56 unforced errors. Coco Gauff, 51. For Gauff, 9 double faults to Kostyuk's 8. An extraordinarily erratic performance on serve. Uncharacteristic from Coco Gauff, certainly uncharacteristic relative to what we've seen from her the rest of this 2024 season. She's now 10-0 overall on the year, but she faced 14 breakpoint matches in this event. For comparison, to date, through the duration of the Auckland event, she faced 16 breakpoints, and to date in this tournament, she had faced 13 breakpoints. Hadn't faced a breakpoint since round number 2. She faced 14 of them in this match against Kostyuk. Obviously, the script of this one was funky as well. Kostyuk races out to this 5-1 lead where it wasn't just the Gauff forehand breaking down, by the way, which was the typical script in her losses thus far in her career. It was everything. Backhand wasn't working. Serve was all over the place. Wasn't generating easy opportunities to move to the net. The springiness and, again, depth of everything Kostyuk was throwing at her just seemed to throw the calibration off in the Coco Gauff ground strokes. And again, it was a head-scratching performance from a player who, to that point of the event, had yet to drop a set, to that point of the season, had yet to drop a match. And she goes down 5-1, and you think, all right, this one's over. Now, credit to Gauff. She gets a break back. She gets a hold. But you think to yourself, all right, this one's over. Not the case. All of a sudden, it's 5-all, and Marta Kostyuk is serving in the first set because Kostyuk gets erratic, because her forehand shanking all over the map, because the backhand's a little low now and it's hitting the net tape or landing in the net, and the slices are kind of leaking on her into the alleys, and now the drop shots are kind of hanging, and Gauff is getting a little bit more comfortable playing the backhand line, just keeping the ball in play, allowing you to make the errors. All of a sudden, Gauff breaks for 6-5, and you think to yourself, all right, sure, she's going to escape, I guess so. And then Kostyuk breaks back, and all of a sudden we have this injury timeout, and everything. We're just able to stew in all of the funkiness, all of the errors that were that match. And again, 56 unforced errors for Kostyuk, 51 unforced errors for Coco Gauff. You look in set number 1 specifically, Kostyuk had 26 of her unforced errors. Gauff had 24 of her unforced errors. It was the weirdest 7-6 set I've seen. Coco Gauff ultimately able to prevail 8-6 in the breaker. Again, credit to Kostyuk. She was able to fight back to extend that breaker. Gauff was in the lead for just about the entirety of it. And Gauff escapes with the opening set, as the better player oftentimes does when things are funky. And look, I know she's younger than Kostyuk. She's more experienced at this stage. It was not her first quarterfinal. It was for Marta Kostyuk at the slam level. It was the funkiness you would expect of a 19-year-old versus a 21-year-old. It was not the funkiness you would expect from the level from these two, given the level they had played to this point of the event. But, again, credit to Marta Kostyuk. She's down a break pretty much the entirety of the second set. Able to break back for 2-3, down 4-2. Able to break back for 3-4. And you think, okay, maybe this is where she steadies the ship. Nope. Coco Gauff breaks for 5-3, serves for the set. What happens in that instance? Marta Kostyuk connects on a couple of backhand returns. Marta Kostyuk shows off that line drive pace, the underlying physicality, which, by the way, even through the funkiness, you saw the speed of both of these players showed off at times. The well-rounded skill set of them trying to do all these different things, even if very rarely were all of them working at once. Kostyuk's able to grind her way back. Marta Kostyuk's able to force a breaker. All of a sudden, Marta Kostyuk wins that second set breaker, and we think we have a battle on our hands. Unfortunately, we kind of didn't. Coco Gauff racing out to a 5-love third set lead. Kostyuk getting 2 games back, and just given the course of that match, you thought there's got to be a third act here, right? We're going to see a third lead overcome. Not the case. Gauff able to steady the ship. Gauff able to get over the finish line. 7-6, 6-7, 6-2. Look, if you are a Coco Gauff fan, if you are Coco Gauff, you're trying to erase this match from your memory. There is not a lot of positives to come out of this from Coco Gauff, other than the fact that you cleared the mental hurdle. You're always in a run to a slam title, going to have to win the match where you're not playing your best. I think even for Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer at the peaks of their powers, Rafa might be the exception because his intensity is always just so high that you don't even know if he's not playing his best. You can't think of the clear-cut example. I mean, of course you can if you really want to dig into it. But again, you're always going to have to win those matches where you're not playing your best. Find a way to grind through. Coco Gauff did that at this quarterfinal. Now she gets the one where she gets to play freely. Now it's the winner-take-all match against Sabalenka, where, again, you just have less to lose because it's 2 of the best players in the world. And, again, roll the balls out. Let's play some tennis. I guess if the glass half-full perspective, it wasn't the Gauff forehand that broke down in this match. Glass half-empty perspective, it was the everything that broke down for Coco Gauff in this match. You look across the match for Gauff, I mentioned the 51 unforced errors, just 17 winners to Kostyuk's 39. Now, credit to Gauff, she generated 22 break points for herself versus the 14 she faced, able to break 9 times, 16 of 26 at the net. She was pretty solid when the opportunity did come to move forward. And by the way, how does she close out that opening set? By moving forward on a center third approach shot where, again, given the errors that had come off of Kostyuk's racket, she kind of floats a passing shot in the center. Gauff a good backhand volley. Kostyuk floats the lob response long. She was bolder in the biggest moments, even through the unforced errors, trusted her game plan versus a Kostyuk who just felt like was always searching for something she could find a rhythm to do repetitively, and that was just, again, very rarely available. Now, she continued to fight, continued to show off things throughout the course of this match, but if I am being honest, this was not the greatest tennis. Over 100 unforced errors speaks to that fact, but it speaks to the resilience of Coco Gauff that she's able to prevail. And now Gauff's into her 3rd semi in her career at the majors. She's now made it at 3 of the 4, making obviously U.S. Open last year, Roland Garros on her way back to the final, back in 2022. Now this Australian Open as well. It's a tremendous start that carries off of the momentum she obviously built through the last third of the season. You look for her since Wimbledon, now 34-4 overall. She's 10-0 to start this year. And, again, outside opponents, against opponents ranked outside the top 20, she moves to 21-0 since the end of Wimbledon last year. Obviously, last 52 weeks overall, she's 53-15. She's won 78% of her matches overall. It's pretty good against everyone. But to be undefeated against opponents ranked outside the top 20 during that stretch, to have her only losses come to 2 players, Iga and Pegula, it's pretty impressive stuff for someone who's still 19 years old. And courtesy of our friends Opta Ace, again, a couple of stats for you all. Coco Gauff earns her 49th victory as a teenager at the majors. Since 1990, only Jennifer Capriati won more Grand Slam singles matches amongst American teenagers. Here's the top 5, by the way, because this is quite the list. Capriati, obviously one of the best teenagers we've ever had. She won 50 matches. Gauff's at 49. Serena won 49. How'd Serena Williams' career turn out? I think pretty good. Venus Williams, if that's your floor, pretty good floor to have, 43. And then Lindsay Davenport, who, by the way, if that's your floor, that's a Hall of Fame player too, 38 wins. So, again, Coco Gauff now tied Serena, surpassed Venus, surpasses Davenport. She's chasing Capriati for the most American wins since 1990 ever amongst an American teenager. Coco Gauff, the second teenager this century to win her first 10 matches in a single calendar year after Justine Henin did it in 2001. I mean, come on now. I mean, she's already a major champion. Probably already, if her career ended tomorrow, she would at least be in the conversation, in that Hall of Fame conversation. Probably has to do a little bit more because she's still a little bit on the younger side, but has played a lot of tour-level matches. The overall title count's not where it quite needs to be like, yep, surefire Hall of Famer. But again, she's 19 years old, and every indication, every pathway says Coco Gauff is just one of the special ones we're gifted every so often by the tennis gods. Again, was it her best tennis? No. No one's going to accuse her of that. It's a massive victory for Coco Gauff to advance to the semifinals of this match, of this event. That's how you say all those phrases together. Advance to the semifinals of this event. She's currently sitting at 3 in the live rankings, which is her career high. Obviously, on the flip side for Kostyuk, a little disappointing to go out in this particular fashion. You feel like you should have had that first set. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Again, third set was what it was, but you feel like that's a match where, given the level you saw from Gauff, if Kostyuk raises her level even 15%, she is walking out of that match with a straight set victory. Kostyuk still, though, first quarterfinal of her career at the majors to get this sort of result to start her season. 21-year-old is up to number 28 now in the live rankings. We going to see her at all the big events. We're going to see her with a seed next to her name at a lot of them as well, just back on the path, back where she needs to be after, again, some serious volatility over the past couple of seasons. This is just exactly the kickstart Kostyuk needed to her 2024 campaign. And again, solid opening month for Marta Kostyuk overall. Ends in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open. I mean, certainly I think everyone was imagining Coco Gauff was going to get to the semifinals. She was a Tier 1 contender, top 4 player, held seed to get to this round. Probably the best part of her making it there is now we get to see the Sabalenka-Gauff rematch that we were all anticipating at the start of this event. And look, again, Coco Gauff did her part, dropped just one set to get here. Aryna Sabalenka's played untouchable tennis to this point of the event. Sabalenka yet to drop a set, another straight set, 2-3 victory for her over Barbara Krejcikova. You look for Sabalenka now. Overall in this event, she has dropped just 16 games. 16 games in 10 sets of tennis. 16 games in 10 sets of tennis. She's got 3 bagels on her resume, and no one's played a set with her closer than 6-3, including a Barbara Krejcikova, who in making this quarterfinal is now back up to number 10 in the live rankings for now. Qin Wen knocking on the door, and if Qin Wen wins, she will surpass her. But 16 games, like 3-2. This match there was one moment, not where this match was in doubt, but where maybe you thought to yourself, oh, is Krejcikova going to make a little push here? Are we going to see a comeback with her back pushed against the wall? This is someone who had overcome a set deficit in 3 of her first 4 matches. We kind of got used to this recipe. She did slowly but surely seem to be calibrating the weapons, the +1 depth, the return of serve more than anything. The first set, she was almost helpless against the Sabalenka serve. Second set, things got a little bit better, but here was the moment. 4-3, Sabalenka serving. Up a break, by the way, but only a single break. 4-3, she's serving 15-30. Huge serve out wide, inside in, +1 forehand for a winner. Sabalenka's back to 30-all. She lets out a roar. In my head, that's when I knew the match was over. It was that simple. The confidence to go for that ball with the tenacity and pace that she did. Again, over the highest portion of the net, inside in, the big rip with the serve out wide. It was just combinations like that. There was nothing Krejcikova could do. She was always on her back foot. And again, I hate to use this analogy repetitively, beat this drum. You Cracked Racquets fans know what's coming next. It's Serena Williams Power Tennis Country Club tennis. It's just the elite of the elite. I don't care what you're doing with your racket. I am imposing my will upon you. And to some extent, you don't really have a say in how this match goes. And that's how Aryna Sabalenka played, not just against the number 9 seed in this event in the quarters, but that's how she's played all event long. That's how she's played all season long. That's how she's played for 6 consecutive majors. And I mentioned this earlier. Aryna Sabalenka now has made the semifinals of 6 consecutive major events. 6 consecutive major events. By the way, with this win, she's now 8-0 overall in her career in quarterfinals at the majors. 6 consecutive. Here's the list of players that have done that before turning age 26 in the women's game, because it's an elite list. Chris Everett, Steffi Graf, Monica Seles, Martina Hingis, Serena Williams. You're missing Martina Navratilova, but those are 5 of the 6 best players we have in women's tennis history. Maybe, again, Navratilova aside, those are 5 of the top 6, just straight up. Everett, Graf, Seles, Hingis, Serena, Sabalenka. That's a list of 6. By the way, I'm just going to float this out there. I bet Iga makes that a list of 7 before she turns 26 years old. That's the first time Aryna Sabalenka has been on a list like that. Like, yeah, obviously she's had a lot of success over the course of these past 5 years, really throughout the course of her career. The talent was so evident immediately. Serena Williams Power Tennis Country Club was a bit we invented here at Cracked Racquets to try and find a place for Aryna Sabalenka moving forward and how we knew she was special. I have looked at a lot of stats. Again, Iga, 4th youngest to 4 major titles, things like that, where you sort of see kind of immediately, okay, she's on a really special path. This is the first one of those for Sabalenka. 6 straight major semifinals. She joins again. Everett, Seles, Serena, Hingis, and Graf. Do I need to say any more about the level of tennis she's now played for 17 months consecutively? And just, again, there was, I hate to be this simple, there was nothing Krejcikova could do. Krejcikova had success at times, was decent on the first serve. She was 4 of 20 on the second serve because Sabalenka was just ripping and ripping freely. Sabalenka, 20 winners in this match. Krejcikova hit 6. Krejcikova, 24 unforced errors to Sabalenka's 13. You shouldn't have, unless your name's Iga Swiatek or Elena Rybakina or maybe Coco Gauff, we shouldn't count unforced errors for you against Aryna Sabalenka because to some extent everything is forced. Because if you're not gripping and ripping, Sabalenka's just crushing you right now. She is playing elite tennis. Her level right now, again, I would need to see her best versus Iga's best to know whose best level is the best right now. That's how well Sabalenka's playing. That's what, again, continues to make the fact that Rybakina beat her in Brisbane so remarkable because I know this has just been 6 minutes of gushing. She has been untouchable. And it's the moment the ball comes off her racket. Obviously, the first serve that it's constantly around 115, 120, that stands out to the eyes, but so does the return of serve. So does the first forehand. So does the first backhand. So does the backhand return. So does the forehand return. So does the cross court. So does the down the line. So does her speed for someone that powerful. So does her volley. She's an exceptional. This is a former slam-winning doubles player. Aryna Sabalenka's skill set is really well-rounded, and of course, what ties it all together is the relentless aggression, and there's just a consistency to it now. I'm not really sure how anyone other than Iga or the Rybakina matching that level of power tennis. I don't know how anyone beats her right now with the levels she is playing. All due respect to Coco Gauff, Sabalenka's best has just been the best in Melbourne in this women's singles draw, and it hasn't been particularly clear. 8th semifinal for her at the majors. Again, 6 in a row for Sabalenka. It's the first time since 2012 that we get a U.S. Open final rematch at the Australian Open. 2011, not 2012. Clijsters, Zvonareva had a rematch that year. Gauff, Sabalenka, the first since then. I mean, again, it's a really fun match. What is surprising, to me, is that Coco Gauff's the favorite. I know she's had more success more broadly. She beat Sabalenka in the U.S. Open final last year, 31-4 since the end of Wimbledon. But the weapons, the eye test. Gauff is one of 3 players. It's Swiatek, Gauff, Krejcikova, top 15 in both hold and break percentage. For what it's worth, Sabalenka, one of 7, top 20 in both hold and break percentage amongst top 100 players. But it's an eye test thing. I just watch her play. What could Krejcikova do? What could any of these people do when you are on the full stretch because Sabalenka's laced another ball down the line? I just don't know. Krejcikova didn't serve great. She hit her spots. It just didn't matter because Sabalenka's returning that confidently and her power just overwhelms you. So it's Sabalenka's tournament to lose. She is playing that well. Here's the problem. Whenever you've said it's someone's tournament to lose in this event, they have lost in the subsequent round. Obviously a loss for her to Coco Gauff. It would sting because I think Sabalenka thinks she is the best player in the world, and the reason I say that is not as a diss, but I think that's the standard she holds herself to. Gauff would be disappointed by the loss, but again, the tennis Sabalenka is playing right now is breathtaking in a way that I think you can just be like, look, that's the power tennis. That's who we're all chasing, at least to start this season. This level we're seeing from Sabalenka. Dominant in a straight set victory. Again, if you're Krejcikova, first quarterfinal in quite some time for her. I think it was since the 2022 Australian Open at the majors. She's back up again to number 10 right now in the live rankings. Never played her best tennis from start to finish in a match. And yet again, 3 come from behind victories after a disappointing Adelaide loss to, by the way, a player in Callum Sky who's still alive in this event, so less disappointing with time. Again, if you're Krejcikova, you come out of this thinking, oh man, we really are all chasing Sabalenka. I just got a test of it. I got to look at it. I got to find a way to solve that problem moving forward. Otherwise, again, I'm going to be chasing all season long. Krejcikova, excellent. Sets up the blockbuster semifinal bout. Sabalenka, Coco Gauff. We'll have that one for us on day number 12. Buckle your seatbelts, folks. It's going to be really fun. And yet again, you could argue it's the second best semifinal we saw produced on day number 10. Is now we get the Djokovic-Sinner matchup that's been on everyone's schedule since Sinner beat Djokovic at the Tour Finals. Djokovic responds by beating Sinner in the Tour Finals final. How does Sinner respond? Well, they play at Davis Cup the next week, and Sinner beats Djokovic to help lead Italy to the Davis Cup title. I mean, and now we get to see them play at the first major semifinal event here. Second career semifinal, obviously, for Sinner. 10 millionth career semifinal for Novak Djokovic. Let's talk about how they got here first before we revel in the fact that we do get to see the matchup happen. You look for Novak Djokovic, he was pushed in a way that, with all due respect to, you know, some of his earlier opponents in this event, I know Prismic took him to 4, Popyrin took him to 4, both of those matches 3 hours plus. Taylor Fritz played well enough to go 2-0 up on Novak Djokovic. Now, Djokovic also played well enough to go 2-0 up on Fritz, but I've never seen Taylor Fritz move as well as he did for the first 2.5 hours of that match. An 80-plus minute first set, 70-minute-plus second set. Djokovic, who, I think, what was it, a 9, 10, 11 deuce game right out the gates in game number 1 of the match for Taylor Fritz. He holds 4-1 love. It's a clean sheet on serve pretty much the rest of the way. Fritz ultimately, Djokovic get to that breaker where Djokovic just a little bit too precise, a little bit too disciplined, a little bit too patient, a little bit too good at when there was a short ball, getting Fritz stretched in an elite way in the outer thirds. In a way, by the way, he kind of had to get stretched throughout the course of this match. It was really impressive stuff from both. Again, at other times, though, there were times when Taylor Fritz was in the outer third, slapping forehand winners. The fact that you look for Taylor Fritz in this match, he fought off 17 of 21 break points he faced against the greatest returner in men's tennis history. 17 of 21. And when he got that opening hold, again, he lost the match ultimately, but it was very clear. Was he going to win the match by holding in that opening game? No, he was not. If he got broken there, this match goes 2-2. Like, you really felt like it was that significant for Fritz to get over that sort of mental hurdle immediately. And look, Taylor was very clear in the post-match press conference. Hey, like, I played really well in this match. I only played really well for 2.5 hours, but those first 2 sets, I played Novak equally, and now I just got to figure out how to sustain that for 5 hours. It was a very honest, candid, blunt response, fresh off the court, of his assessment. Taylor Fritz, a guy who's always been very candid and I think very intelligent in his assessments of the sport. Anytime you've had the chance to speak with him, I think he was right. Like, he was serving well enough. Not winning free points, but creating +1 opportunities to keep Novak on his back foot, to prevent Novak from, again, easily stepping up, ripping back. So the most clear-cut example, 5-6 opening set, 15-40. Djokovic is down set points after having 17,000 break points in that opening set. And you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, is Fritz going to escape with the opening set? 2, I don't want to say easy, but very much routine service locations, and in the case of that 15-40 point, a very routine, decisive, but routine +1 backhand cross-court winner. Djokovic was able to hit that gear and turn that on whenever he needed to, and he needed to with frequency throughout the course of this match. Djokovic ultimately able to win 82% of his first serve points, saves 4 of the 6 break points that he faced. Perhaps most encouragingly, he had 20 aces to Fritz's 16. Djokovic amped things up in sets number 3, sets number 4, started being a little bit more aggressive earlier in the rallies. Also, Fritz started leaving things far more short. Like when you could get Fritz in the outer third now, instead of an on-the-run pass with decisive drive on it, or not on the run pass, but on the run shot with decisive drive on it, it became on the stretch slices that were floated and gave Novak an opportunity to get his momentum moving forward into the court. He took advantage of that opportunity whenever it presented itself. Sets 2, sets 3, really decisive. Again, he pulled away in those sets. Djokovic, 52 winners against 26 unforced errors throughout the course of the match, but credit to Fritz, 63 winners against 39 unforced errors. This was the best I have ever seen Taylor Fritz volley. Needed to do so to fight off many of those 17 break points. He was able to fight off 19 of 29 at the net. That's about as good as you're going to see at the net from Taylor Fritz. Did everything you needed to do to beat Djokovic through 2 sets of play. He said it perfectly. He wasn't able to extend beyond the 2.5-hour threshold necessary, sustaining that level to do so. But that's the best I've ever seen the 26-year-old American play. And coming off of a match where I thought it was the biggest win of his career, and prior to this match, these first 2 sets against Djokovic, the best I'd ever seen him play at a major, that match against Tsitsipas, his 4-set round 4 win. Yes, he now, again, another loss for against Djokovic. Fritz remains winless. This was a massive positive. This was a massive step forward. Belief that, okay, the level is there, the fitness is not. If I can get myself fitter and more confident in my ability to sustain that, my new level moving forward, I like where my level is. I like where my tennis is. The way is, again, the pace he's able to produce off both wings. I really liked his patience in attacking the Djokovic backhand. And when I say attack the Djokovic backhand, not attacking it for errors, but hoping that something eventually might be left short, which at times might be the case because, look, Fritz has the rally tolerance on that backhand wing. Fritz has maybe even more pace than Novak Djokovic on that backhand wing, even if the steadiness and the defensive abilities of Djokovic on that backhand wing, unmatched, obviously, arguably, if not clearly the best backhand we have in tennis history. Fritz's is really good as well, and his patience in attacking that wing, his discipline in yanking the forehand cross, but doing so in an aggressive fashion to open up a down-the-line angle to kind of, again, try and draw something short out of the backhand wing, something easy to attack behind. I liked everything Taylor Fritz did. He just wasn't able to sustain it for the 4 or 5 hours you need to beat Novak Djokovic at a major. And look, maybe Taylor Fritz will never be able to do that. Maybe the clock runs out on Djokovic, though, and by the time it does, Fritz is able to sustain this level for 3.5 hours, 4 hours. Might that be enough against someone who's not the greatest of all time? Maybe. This was an encouraging result. Again, for a guy who dealt with some injuries in the offseason, Taylor Fritz progressively got better in every match he played this first month of Australia, from United Cup all the way through to this Djokovic loss in the quarterfinals. Another guy I was worried might be plateauing. I just wondered, again, he's been 8 through 12 now for a couple of years. Is this just the zone he belongs in? Is there another gear for him to get to? You watch this result, which, again, his second straight quarterfinal at a hardcourt major. Maybe there is another gear to get to. Maybe not knocking on the door of Tier 1 or being a staple of Tier 1 where he's beaten guys like Djokovic, and not just one of them, but beating a Djokovic and Alcaraz and Medvedev in the same event. Maybe not that. But can he beat one of those guys on the right day, at the right major, at the right time, on the right surface? Maybe. I'm not willing to close that door on that question yet for Taylor Fritz. And again, 26 years old. That's, I think, a good thing to say. You look for Fritz again. Back-to-back major quarterfinals for him. And the big thing, again, the top 10 victory over Stefanos Tsitsipas. You look for Fritz now coming out of Australia. He is up 3 spots back into the top 10, back up to number 9 in the live rankings. On the Djokovic side of things, I mean, what is there to say? It's his 48th career semifinal at the major. It's the 11th time he's made the semifinals in Australia. And, oh, by the way, every time prior he's made the Australian Open semis. How's that gone for him? Oh, he's gone on to win the freaking event. 9-0 in Grand Slam semis since the start of 2021, and here's the most ridiculous stat. You look for Novak at the majors since the start of 2021. The guy is 70-3. 70-3 overall at the majors since the start of 2021. He has played 11 different major events during that time span. He's made at least the semifinal round of 10 of them. He's made at least the finals of 9 of them, and he's won titles at 7 of them. And by the way, he's done all of this in his mid to late 30s. Just a quick Djokovic stat for all of you. Again, all of these stats courtesy of our friends at OptAce. With this victory over Taylor Fritz, Novak Djokovic joins Roger Federer as the only players in ATP Tour history to earn 700 hardcourt wins in the ATP during the Open era. 700 hardcourt wins alone. 99% of pro players who have ever played, maybe even higher than that number, have never hit 700 victories. Djokovic hit 700 wins on hard courts alone. Djokovic also surpassing Federer, his 15th top 20 win at a slam since turning 35. Most ever in the rankings era since 1973. It's a 33rd straight win in Australia for Djokovic. He equals a Monica Seles for the most consecutive wins at the event in singles main draw history. The stats write themselves. Greatest of all time, and the guy's 36 years old. Again, the thing I keep pointing to, not the 70-3 record in the majors since 2021. No, it's the fact that in 2024, at 36, turning 37 years old, you feel like Novak Djokovic is more likely to win 4 majors this season than he is to win 0. How he does it, it's like look how many licks to the center of the Tootsie Pop. The world may never know. Djokovic through to another semifinal where, again, the blockbuster matchup is set up. He's going to face Jannik Sinner as Sinner does his part yet to drop a set. Another straight set victory. This time it's over his toughest opponent to date. Straight set win over Andrei Rublev. A match that, while extraordinarily competitive, never really in doubt. A 6-4, 7-6, 6-3 win for Sinner. Jannik Sinner in this match fighting off all 8 break points that he faced. Jannik Sinner, since the start of the season, holding 97.2% of the time through the matches that he's played. But here's the bigger number. Jannik Sinner, since the start of Wimbledon, 37-5 overall. 37-5. He's holding serve 90.8% of the time. Just for reference, when you are over 90%, you're talking prime Isner, prime Kyrgios, prime Federer. Those are the 3 players I have ever seen sustain an over 90% hold percentage. Again, you're holding serve 9 out of every 10 service games. Those are the only 3 guys I've ever seen sustain it for a full season. Jannik Sinner hasn't done it for a full season. He's holding 90.8% of the time for 6 months consecutively. And here's what he's doing that those other guys, including Federer, didn't. He's also breaking serve 27.5% of the time. That's a top 10 number amongst top 100 players against ATP, amongst top 100 players on the ATP Tour, and it speaks to just his power tennis works everywhere. He's just better than just about everyone at everything now. And you saw that in this match against Andrei Rublev. Sure, Rublev's serve, his forehand combination were good. Sinner's were better. Sure, Rublev's gotten more consistent on the backhand wing. He's comfortable driving that ball with depth. Sinner's better at it. Sure, Rublev's become a better volleyer, more comfortable in seeking out those opportunities to move forward, and in doing so as well, Sinner's just better at it. Just Jannik Sinner, that's the crazy part. And Andrei Rublev is 5 in the world, and Jannik Sinner was better than him at everything last night. Jannik Sinner went unbroken. He fought off all 8 break points that he faced throughout the course of last night's match. I mean, again, every stat's going to point in his direction, obviously. Jannik Sinner, 34 winners against 24 unforced errors. Rublev wasn't bad last night, by the way, either. 34 winners against 32 unforced errors. Rublev made 70% of his first serves. Both guys had 10 aces. Both guys won 76% of their first serve points. What's the biggest difference? And it honestly came down to this 11-point spread. Jannik Sinner, 22 of 42 on second serve points. He won 52% of them. Rublev, 11 of 30. He won 37% of them. By the way, he made 70% of his first serves in this match. So it's not as though he didn't minimize the opportunity for Sinner to get cleaner looks on the return of serve, and yet anytime Jannik Sinner got to look at a second serve, he pounced. It's how he was able to capitalize. In the games where he got his 2 breaks, he faced at least 2 points, 2 points that went to the second serve in each of those games. The margins were that thin. Again, Rublev was good. Sinner was just better. Rublev's forehand had success. Sinner's forehand had more success. Like I hate to make it be this blunt or this simplistic in my analysis and not say, Sinner did a great job of serving to the Rublev backhand hip. And I will say, and this is a game plan you have to employ on Andrei Rublev. You have to go into the belly of the beast. You have to be willing to go into his deuce side, into his forehand wing. Because once you go into that deuce side, once you get him parked on that deuce side of the court, now you open up the opportunity to attack his backhand corner, force him to hit that on the run, try and get him to pop something up short. Sinner has the weapons to do that confidently. Sinner knows, okay, I'm going to go into your forehand wing. You may connect on one. I'm going to connect on one better. And the biggest moment in this match, of course, Jannik Sinner goes down 5-1 in that second set breaker. You feel like, 5-1, double mini break deficit, but Sinner was serving at 1-5. You think to yourself, all right, like Rublev is playing well enough to have won this second set. Neither guy is breaking serve. Rublev has had a few chances. Like he deserves to win, not deserves to win this set, but him winning this set doesn't fall outside the bounds of what's gone on so far in this match. It makes sense. It's been extraordinarily competitive, 1 set apiece heading into the turn. Nope, not the case. Jannik Sinner wins 6 straight points in that second set, a combination of deft serving, bold returning, a brilliant they have this long exchange that ends in this ridiculous Jannik Sinner forehand cross-court winner where, again, he goes into that Rublev forehand belly of the beast. Rublev yanks him wide outside the alley. Sinner takes advantage of the space created to him, finds this ridiculous angle. You got to bring out the protractor to measure. Rips a winner there on his way to, again, 6 consecutive points to end that breaker. He takes it 7-5. That's when you knew, again, 7-6 in the breaker. 2 sets to love lead. This match is over for Jannik Sinner, and it's a massive milestone. Second career semifinal at the majors, the first coming, of course, at Wimbledon last year. He is now 14-3 on hard courts against top 10 opponents over his last 52 weeks. Let me say that again. 14-3 on hard courts against top 10 opponents for a year stretch now. Sinman's the real deal. He's yet to drop a set in this 2024 season, and we'll turn to the Opta Ace well one more time to end today's show. You look for Jannik Sinner, what he's accomplished in reaching this semifinal. Jannik Sinner now in making the semifinals. Aside from the big 3, Jannik Sinner's the 3rd player, so he's the 6th player. You can include the big 3. 6th player since 2000 to reach the semifinals of the Australian Open without dropping a set. That list of players: Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, Andy Murray, Tomas Berdych, Jannik Sinner. If the worst-case scenario is your career turns into Berdych, you're making a couple of major finals, you don't have to work a second job in your career if you're Jannik Sinner moving forward. I mean, again, 14-3 against top 10 opponents speaks for itself. And obviously the record more broadly during this stretch of time to be 37-5 over a 6-month period on the ATP Tour, to be 10-2 during top 10 opponents during that stretch of time as well, and 17-4 against the top 20. He's beating the best that this game has to offer, and he's done it consistently now for 6 months. That's what an elevation into Tier 1 looks like. That's the part of the conversation Jannik Sinner just belongs in moving forward, and he has done his part. Again, both he and Djokovic do their part to set up the blockbuster semifinal matchup we all wanted. Look, on the flip side, it is worth noting. I got to, again, I try to be glass half full as often as possible, but I got to give you the full side of every story. Andrei Rublev, with this loss, by the way, 0-10 now in Grand Slam quarterfinals. He's the first male player in the Open era to lose his first 10 quarterfinals, 2nd overall after Manuela Maleva. This one ranks a little bit differently because Jannik Sinner is playing that well. Now, if the question you want to ask of Andrei Rublev, is he a Tier 1 guy after a 10th consecutive quarterfinal loss? He's not a Tier 1 guy. That's not a new piece of information. Is he a tier 2 guy? The guy who's going to, every tier 1 guy or guy who wants to approach tier 1 has to overcome to try and capture a big title? And is he always going to hold seed, be around in the biggest stages of the biggest events? Absolutely. He's a top 8 guy, not a top 10, a top 8 guy who will continue to be seen in tour finals and continue to get to compete amongst the best of the best, which are the peers and standards he holds himself to. I mean, again, the win over De Minaur was so exceptional that I think it is a little bit of medicine in swallowing this bitter pill that is a straight-set quarterfinal loss, a 10th consecutive. But I think if you're Andrei Rublev, you come out of this month of the season feeling pretty good about your level, grind your way through the ugly Seyboth-Wild match. Now you get the 5-set come-from-behind victory against a hostile crowd in De Minaur. You won a title in Hong Kong to start the season as well. You're sitting right now 5 in the rankings. If Zverev wins his quarterfinal, even then he won't surpass you. Zverev's got to make a run to the final to overcome Rublev in that number 5 spot. I think if you're Andrei Rublev, you're feeling pretty good about his first month. I'd probably say B+, maybe even an A- if you factor in the scale of that De Minaur win, but certainly no lower than a B+. He wins a title. He makes the quarterfinals. At the very least, he is holding seed once again, showing the same level we have seen from him now for half a decade, which is him being a top 8 guy. But again, the lead is clear. Sinner, Djokovic, the rematch we all deserve. I got plenty of time to go rewatch the film, talk to you again. What are the specific tactical things? I thought Sinner was willing to go into the belly of the beast of that Djokovic forehand. I thought Sinner, more than anything, though, actually played with steadiness through the Djokovic backhand in their 3 encounters to wait for a short ball to emerge to open up the court for himself. And again, to think the tactic is go after the Djokovic backhand is a ludicrous thing for any person who watches this sport to say out loud. That's why I want to go back and rewatch the film to make sure my initial inclination and memory is correct. But Sinner versus Djokovic. Djokovic right now a 51.3% favorite according to Tennis Abstract. These two men, whomever wins, will be the favorite according to Tennis Abstract in the final. Buckle your seatbelts, folks. Now the fun really starts again. Sabalenka, Gauff, Djokovic, Sinner. Those are the semifinals we were dealt on day number 10. If day number 11 even gives us half that sort of excitement, it's something for us to all enjoy as we approach the business end of the year's first major. And, of course, moving forward, all of our content going to be housed here on our Mini Break podcast feed. I'll have a preview podcast up for all of you listeners a little bit later as we break down the semifinal women's matches. Now, the problem is I just don't know what those matches are right now. We still got a day to play. So, again, as soon as we see that Kalinskaya, Jung Chin-Wen match, that Noskova-Yastremska match, we'll have a preview podcast out previewing date number 12 for all of you listeners. In the meantime, of course, go check out our other content, whether it's covering the college tennis world, the challenger circuit, or everything else happening right now in the tennis universe. You can see it all across our various podcasts. Make sure you like, rate, subscribe, review, not just this show, but the Great Shot Podcast, Cracked Interviews podcast, as well as our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. A shout out, as always, to our super producer, Daniel Westoff, for the of editing job he does day in, day out, making all of our content possible. Thank you to you as well for tuning in, and a thank you to our friends at Tennis Point. Remember, it's tennis-point.com. The promo code is CR15. With that said, for our fantastic super producer, Daniel Westoff, our friends at Tennis Point, from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. You know what to say. Hey, that's the break, and we will see you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.